Imagine this. You're invited to the grandest place in the country. Bright chandeliers, guards at every door, and whispers following your every step. Then out of nowhere, the daughter of the most powerful man looks at you, smiles, and tells you she wants to be with you. Sounds like a dream, right? But what if I told you I turned her down? People always ask, why would anyone refuse such an offer? A life of luxury, endless power, and the world at your feet. But the truth is, things are never as simple as they appear. And in my case, saying no wasn't just a choice, it was survival. The first time I met her, it wasn't in a palace or a fancy dinner. It was somewhere completely ordinary, just a simple gathering where nobody expected her to show up. She wasn't surrounded by security. No cameras, no flashing lights. She looked just like anyone else. And maybe that's what made her so interesting. At first, we talked casually about small things like books, music, and travel. But the way she leaned in, the way her eyes locked on mine, I could sense there was more behind those words. That moment, I realized she wasn't talking to me like a stranger. She was testing me. What would you do if the most powerful person's daughter suddenly wanted you? Weeks passed, and the invitations started. Private dinners, hidden meetings, secret drives through the city at night. At first, it felt unreal. Who could resist being treated like someone special by a woman everyone else only saw on the news? But slowly, the weight of it all began to show. Every time we met, there were eyes on us, guards pretending to look away, advisors giving quiet warnings, and even friends starting to keep their distance. It didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like stepping into a trap I couldn't escape. Would you risk your freedom for a love that felt more like a cage? One night, she looked me in the eyes and said the words I never expected. I want you to marry me. My heart froze. On one side, there was a future with everything most people dream of. On the other side, there was a future where I still had my freedom, my voice, and my own path. I thought long and hard. If I said yes, I wouldn't just be marrying her. I'd be marrying into rules, secrets, and responsibilities that weren't mine. My life would never belong to me again. Every step, every word, even every friend I chose would be judged. Is love still love? If you lose yourself inside it. The day I gave her my answer, I'll never forget the silence in the room. She expected me to say yes. She thought power was enough to win my heart. But I told her gently that I couldn't do it, that my life was meant for something different. And that's when everything changed. From that moment, I wasn't just the guy who turned her down. I became a target for whispers, for rumors, for silent threats. Some people said I was a fool. Others said I was brave. But only I knew the truth. What price would you pay for walking away from the highest seat of power? And the truth is, I didn't walk away because I didn't care. I walked away because sometimes the cost of saying yes is much greater than the cost of saying no. The moment I first saw her, she carried herself with the kind of confidence that made everyone around her notice. She wasn't just someone important because of her family. She had her own charm, her own way of making people feel like they belonged near her. But here's the truth you probably didn't expect. Every conversation with her left me uneasy. Not because she wasn't kind, but because I felt like I was being pulled into a world that was never meant for me. Imagine sitting in a room where every word you say is being measured, every action being observed. That's how it felt with her. Even when she laughed, I noticed bodyguards at the corner of the room, eyes following every movement. And deep down, I asked myself, Could I live a life where even love had conditions? She started opening up to me, telling me stories about how lonely her life was, despite the power around her. She said people treated her like a symbol, not a person. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought maybe I could be the one to change that for her. But then came the question that never left my mind. At what cost to myself? What would you do if the person you cared for came with rules, with expectations that had nothing to do with love? Would you still stay? Or would you walk away? That question haunted me every single night. One day she surprised me by saying she wanted to live like an ordinary person. No cameras, no protection, just freedom. She asked me to take her somewhere simple, somewhere real. So I did. I took her to a little cafe, on a quiet street. No one recognized her there. For the first time I saw her smiling, like she truly belonged in that moment. But even then, deep inside me, I knew this life was temporary. And that's when it hit me. Maybe the hardest choices in life are not about what you want, but about what you know is right for the future. I looked at her and thought about the years ahead. The public pressure, the endless responsibilities, the danger of becoming a story instead of a person. And I realized if I said yes to her, I would lose myself. But here's where it gets more complicated. Turning her down didn't mean I stopped caring. In fact, saying no was the most painful thing I've ever done. Because in her eyes, I saw someone desperate to be loved for who she really was. And now the question I keep asking myself, and maybe you'll ask too, is this: was it courage to walk away, or was it weakness? People always assume that saying no to someone powerful is foolish, but let me tell you, sometimes protecting your peace is more important than grabbing status. That night, after rejecting her proposal, I received an unexpected visit. A sleek black car pulled up outside my home. The men who stepped out weren't ordinary. They were dressed in sharp suits, with eyes that scanned every corner like hawks. My heart raced, but I stood still. They didn't threaten me directly. Instead, one of them handed me a sealed envelope and said only 4 words. "Think very carefully, sir." Inside was an invitation not to dinner, not to a celebration, but to a private meeting at a hidden location. And written in bold letters at the bottom, "Attendance is not optional." At that moment I realized this wasn't about love anymore. This was about power. Ask yourself, would you walk into a room where every decision could change your future forever? Would you sit across from people who could erase your life with a single command? I knew I had 2 choices: accept the meeting and risk being trapped forever, or refuse and prepare for consequences I couldn't even imagine. But here's the twist. My refusal wasn't about fear. It was about truth. Deep down, I believed that if I agreed to see them, they'd twist my words, manipulate my silence, and lock me into a deal I could never escape. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt like footsteps approaching. My phone buzzed with unknown numbers I didn't dare answer. My neighbors noticed cars parked on the street, engines running for hours without moving. It was clear I was being watched. But instead of backing down, I made a decision that shocked even myself. I wrote a single letter, sealed it, and sent it back with their men the next morning. Inside, I explained exactly why I turned down the president's daughter, and why no amount of fear, pressure, or power could change my heart. But here's where things got strange. Hours after sending that letter, my entire life began to shift in ways I couldn't have predicted. I still remember the exact moment. The pressure became real. The daughter of the president looked at me with eyes full of expectation, and the entire room seemed to fall silent. Everyone around us thought it was a perfect match, a dream opportunity. But deep inside my heart, I felt something completely different. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't disrespect. It was the weight of a truth I couldn't ignore. From the outside, anyone would have thought I was the luckiest person alive. After all, who gets a chance like this? Being connected to the most powerful family in the country could have changed my life overnight. Doors would open instantly. Influence, wealth, protection, everything people spend their whole lives chasing would be right in front of me. But what no one saw was how heavy that kind of bond can feel when your heart isn't in it. The more people around me tried to convince me, the louder my own thoughts became. I kept asking myself, what if this isn't love? What if I'm only being admired for the image, not the person I truly am? That thought never left me. And each time she smiled, as genuine as it was, I couldn't shake the feeling that the whole world was watching us like characters in a movie. But here's where it gets complicated. Saying no wasn't just about walking away. It meant possibly offending the most powerful man in the country. It meant risking my safety, my reputation, and even the safety of those close to me. People whispered in my ear, "Do you know what happens when you reject someone in such a position?" And trust me, those whispers kept me up at night. Still, my heart kept telling me the same thing. I couldn't let myself be owned by status, even if it came wrapped in beauty and influence. I wanted love that grew in silence, without cameras, without guards, without political games. But imagine the pressure. The president's daughter herself saying she was willing to choose me, someone outside of her world. Anyone would have been tempted. Anyone would have felt honored. And I did. But I also knew that honor without honesty is just another kind of prison. And then came the moment that shook me most. She asked me directly, with no one else in the room. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were searching. Is it me you don't want, or the world that comes with me? That question tore me apart inside, because the truth was, it wasn't her. She was kind, brave, and someone I could easily admire. But the world she came with, the constant attention, the unspoken rules, the invisible chains, that was something I knew I could never survive in, so I had to make a choice. Keep pretending and live a life that wasn't truly mine, or walk away and face whatever storm would follow. And I'll be honest, the storm did come. People began to question me, judge me, even warn me about consequences I hadn't yet imagined. But even in the middle of all that fear, there was one thing I held on to, the belief that real love can be built on power or pressure. And here cities where things took a twist no one saw coming.